Another time.
Good morning, Gateway Rotary.
Good morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Ring bell and welcome. Okay, good. I got it. All right. Leading us today in the flag salute, Mr. Mike Robbins.
Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Randy Moeller with the four-way test.
Fellow Rotarians, join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Numero uno.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And fifth.
Is it fun?
Fun. Thank you. Okay, so visiting Rotarians and guests. Today we have Janine Menger for like the third or fourth time. Janine has submitted her application.
There you go.
So we are growing membership. We have two other applications coming in soon. And then my guest today, Mr. Steve Massini. Steve is a member of West Olympia Rotary Club. Almost this time, 40 years ago, next month, Steve hired my wife, who worked for Steve's architecture firm for 39 years. She retired last year. Steve's been retired 10 or more? A little more than 10 years, but yeah. So always good to see Steve and his wife, Deb, and thank you for being here today. And Brian, thanks for the money coming up. Some club announcements. Oh, we have an announcement.
Just a reminder, school for South County starts today, so there'll be buses out, and for the cities is next Wednesday. And I'll see you guys next week because I have training. But watch out for the kids.
Thank you. Still getting used to this thing. I have to push a button every now and then. So, some sad news. Spencer Zeman's sister passed away. Michelle passed away this week, I think, age 53, pancreatic cancer. We will have a card. I think Sylvia is going to bring one probably to the next meeting, and we'll get one passed around for that. But feel free to send a note to Spencer and offer your condolences. This last Friday, we were supposed to have our work project with Rebuilding Together, Thurston County, and it was rained out. So we have an opportunity to do it again, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend. A show of hands of who would be interested in doing that again. Anita, myself, Nathan, Mike. Okay, so we could probably get together a small team. Let's see what else. Also, there's a Day of Caring United Way coming up late September, the 27th or 28th, and I'll just send out a note to see if anybody is interested in that. Last night, I was at a social / fundraiser for Coyote Villages, which at one time, well, it was Camp Coyote, then Coyote Villages, and it's now called New Horizons. And they have offered to come speak, which is great. But also, they have a meal program where different clubs and organizations provide a meal once a month, once a quarter, for 30 residents at New Horizons or Coyote Village on the west side. Is that something, again, show of hands, who might be able to participate in that?
Depending on the date?
By provide a meal, you mean?
Yeah, like we'll cook up 10 lasagnas or something like that, so. Club interest sounds like good work. Okay, good, thanks.
Mike?
Yes?
If we can't get people to show up to paint, how do we expect people to make 10 lasagnas once a month?
Go buy them at Costco and then bring them to my house and I'll bring them over there.
Okay.
But the whole idea of that too is to go there and.
Project participation is embarrassingly low, and that's what I'm asking.
It is low. And thank you, Anita, with that. It would be great if we had a service committee lead so that I don't have to do it. But if anybody, again, is interested, I've shared this in the past, I would be happy to pass that off. And I think that is it. Sylvia, do you want to talk about the social? Where are you? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I should just give you this, Nathan, so I don't have to be cute all the time.
Thank you. Good morning, Gateway. How are we?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we did the flyer. Thank you, Nathan, for putting a plug in my brain to do this. It's going to be at my house. We're going to do lasagna. Mike is doing one. Nate and Renee are doing one, and I'm doing one. Nita has agreed to do the bar. And our lovely president has said, we're not getting up that day. So you just get to come to my house for dinner. And I've got a couple really fun games to play. As you can see, it says October 16th for RSVP. Your spouses are and want to come. I would love that. My house is not big, but we're gonna cozy up and be together for fun fellowship.
Sylvia, thank you very much. Should I stop there, Dan?
Yeah, go back one, you know.
Thank you for the cue. Okay, today, our guest speaker, City of Olympia Mayor Dontae Payne. Dontae, thank you for being here. Mayor Dontae Payne was elected mayor in November 2023, and prior to that was elected to Olympia City Council in November 2021. Professionally, Dontae has served as a regional representative and senior policy advisor for civil rights and racial justice in the Washington State Office of the Governor, as Deputy Director, District Director, in the U.S. House of Representatives, and he currently serves as the Equity and Community Partnership Manager for the Washington State Department of Revenue. Dontae is also a former board member of Olympia Hands-Off Children's Museum, great organization. He is the first Black American and openly gay person elected or appointed to the office of mayor in Olympia's 164-year history. Very cool. 165 years now. Dontae was born and raised in Philadelphia. His family later relocated to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he attended high school and joined the U.S. Army. Moved to Olympia in 2014 after being stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord. He and his husband Jason are raising their 8-year-old, maybe now 9-year-old.
Nope, still
8, okay. Daughter Priscilla, along with their cat Minnie. Payne earned a Master's of Public Education and Bachelor of Arts at Evergreen State College. Following his service in the Army, he served on active duty in the United States Army for 6 years with 2 tours to Logar Province, Afghanistan as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. He re-enlisted to serve for 2 additional years in the U.S. Army following his initial enlistment and separated from the Army in 2016. Dontae Payne is focused on improving Olympia by working towards a more housed, safer, cleaner, and greener city. Please welcome Dontae Payne. Mayor Dontae.
Thanks so much, Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, so I have to admit I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed first thing in the morning, so I ask for your patience. But I do want to say that I appreciate the invitation to join you this morning because we at the city are in the middle of having these conversations around the budget. And so I'm here to present to you this morning the conversations that we've been having for the last few months. And as we approach the end of the year, we'll start ramping up more and more of those conversations to prepare for adopting next year's budget. And so I'm here to talk to you a little bit about that this morning. So obviously, many of you know our vision for the city of Olympia is to have a safe and more just and livable community by investing in our community's priorities and our programs and initiatives. So the issue, however, is that the city's revenues are not keeping up pace with our cost. And so I want to be very clear that we are not necessarily in a budget crisis, but what we do see is that the pace that we are going, the revenue is certainly not keeping up with the pace of expenditures, and we need to be sure that we are monitoring that as we continue working towards the goals that we have for our community. So the sustainable operating budget. And so when we think about what the sustainable operating budget is, the definition is that we are trying to work towards, and that is due to emergencies and urgent community needs. And we've been working outside of this definition over the last couple of years, what you see here on your screen. So each of these priorities are part of our comprehensive plan update. So many of you probably are familiar with our comprehensive plan. It's our 20-year vision for the city. It's really our North Star guide that we use, that we always go back to when we are looking at what we do in terms of policy and whether or not it's in line and consistent with our vision and our values that are woven throughout the comprehensive plan. So obviously, as you can see, we have public safety, community livability, environmental stewardship, economy, organizational excellence in a well-planned city. So Olympia 2045 is the name of this initiative or this update that we are doing for the comprehensive plan, as in 20 years from 2025. So some of you may have seen that. We've had a series of open houses at the city for the community to participate in the update of the comprehensive plan. We also have some new chapters that we'll be adding. So for example, the land use and design chapter will be broken out, and there will now be a separate housing chapter, for example, in the comprehensive plan that we haven't had before in the past. Another is our climate chapter. So Olympia was a little bit ahead of the other cities in the state in this regard. But what we did is that we had our own climate chapter, and then we decided, well, we should weave climate change and addressing climate change throughout our comprehensive plan. And then what happened recently is the legislature said, well, all cities will have a climate chapter. And so now we're going back to adding a separate chapter in accordance with the state law to the comprehensive plan. So obviously, as I said, our work is completely rooted in what we do with the comprehensive plan, and that is our North Star for our community. So our priorities, performance, and investment. So our budget work happens really all throughout the year, but as I said earlier, it's really this part of the year, probably more so from the end of mid-September all the way through December is when you'll start seeing the city council have more discussions specifically on the budget. So this is really the time of year where we'll really gauge the community and assess priorities and needs. And obviously, we are soliciting for that feedback from our community members as well. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So here is a list of the community's priorities. So every 2 years, the city launches a community-wide survey. And the most recent survey from 2023, this is what told, these are the top issues that we received back in terms of results from that survey. So housing and homelessness, climate change, economic development and livability, public safety, and transportation. So these are the priorities that people said matter most to them in the survey. And so beyond the survey results, we have declared emergencies specifically around housing and homelessness and climate change impacts. And so there are a lot of circumstances around some of these struggles. Obviously the impacts of homelessness that we see throughout our community, but we have made progress, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So obviously we've made some significant strides that are visible. Many people in our community are coming up to me and they are telling me that they are seeing physical and tangible changes in our community, specifically when it comes to addressing homelessness. And that's because we are slowly but surely chipping away at it, and we are housing folks that are living in encampments throughout our community. And I do want to just add that I believe just last year we housed well over 200 people, and we closed 6 encampments in Thurston County altogether just last year. So public safety. So what we have completed so far is we've closed the municipal jail. We've launched our body-worn and in-vehicle cameras. Body-worn cameras, excuse me, and in-vehicle cameras, completed a comprehensive department analysis, including a staffing study, increased crisis response unit responders to 12, so we've included 2 downtown walking patrol crisis response units. I do also want to mention what's not here, is that in addition to our crisis responders who are, you need to be in a situation where you're voluntarily willing to receive help from them, which is a little different from a designated crisis responder or DCR who has the ability to intervene in an involuntary situation. Well, the city of Olympia now has, we're the first city in our county to now have an assigned or designated crisis responder. And so we do have one person that is assigned to our community specifically to help us with those challenges. And we've been told that some people are seeing changes in that regard as well. I do want to mention the staffing study that you see there under the completed section. So the Olympia Police Department has concluded their staffing study. They indicated that they will need about 10 additional officers to keep up with the pace and the things that we're seeing, the demand that we're seeing for their response in our community. In addition to that, we're having ongoing conversations about annexing the southeast part of the city. In the event that we would do that, we're thinking that that would include about 6 additional officers, and so we're talking 16 additional police officers altogether if we were to annex the southeast part of the city.
Are you okay taking questions?
Absolutely, yes. I meant to say that in the beginning.
So
Please
I have a question on that. Are you finding it to be a challenge to find officers like some of the major cities in Seattle and?
It is a challenge. I'm not hearing specifically that we're in crisis mode, if I will say that. We do have a very, very competitive salary that we offer our department. It's one of the top in the state. And the reason for that is because we believe in compensating them well for the work they do, but we're also distinct in the fact that we are the capital city. And with that comes a set of unique challenges. We have people who come obviously to the Capitol campus from all over the state. And we've seen in years past what that can lead to in terms of certain activity, illegal activity coming into the streets of the city of Olympia, which is no longer the jurisdiction of the Washington State Patrol. And so we do know that there are some unique situations that are different from other communities. And so that's part of the reason why.
By southeast, what do you mean?
Young Highway area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. So the closing of our municipal jail, we made a decision to close the jail, and we decided to contract with the Nisqually tribe. Actually, we were thinking that at the time that was a really important decision for us to make, specifically because I had taken a tour actually back when I was a city council member, and the facility itself was very outdated. And it was designed in a way that fit the needs for when it was built, but not necessarily for modern times. And what I mean by that is the design was very punitive. And we're talking about people who were there for a year or less, right? So not exactly those who are the worst offenders in our society. And yet they were in this facility that had no windows for natural light. It was very dark, very cold. And so we decided that we would, contract out with the Nisqually government and have that government-to-government agreement to instead have them take our folks in. And so that's where we are now at the Nisqually jail, and we have since closed the municipal jail. So as you see here, the 5-year strategic plan for the department, police department is underway, but for the most part, that's almost complete, or is complete at this point as well. Enhancing community involvement and oversight of law enforcement. So we have also just recently approved for there to be a community oversight, a law enforcement body for the city. I do want to mention that they don't have necessarily the authority to investigate, but this is another layer of providing transparency to our community by essentially having a body of community members that works in tandem with our police auditor, which we do have on staff, to really make sure that we're thoroughly looking at use of force cases and that folks feel like they're getting the information that they need as we go through the process of investigation. And so we are proud that we have seated this new body that will work alongside the police auditor for those purposes. And obviously we do have a use of force board as well in accordance with state law. And then obviously we are establishing our community service officers as well. Just a quick note about just recently we celebrated National Night Out, which took place earlier this month. National Night Out is where police officers across the country actually go into their neighborhoods and their communities that they police. And the idea is to connect with community members and really have prioritized community policing. Sort of that's the idea, right? Is to become familiar with your neighbors, with their faces, and each of the neighborhoods kind of do their own thing, different barbecues, block parties, that sort of thing. And so every year, myself and council members will join our officers kind of like for a ride along and go out to the different neighborhoods. And we hit about a handful, at least in my car, this past month. And it was really great to see people and what their concerns were. Their concerns are usually very local, meaning very specific to their neighborhood. So it's always great to hear that because we don't always necessarily hear those specifics unless they contact the city. Yes.
Do you want a hard question or?
Give me what you got.
So we'll start with the hard question.
Sure.
Would you care to comment on the settlement of Timothy Green?
Yes, thank you for that question. So the question was about commenting on the Timothy Green situation, which if many of you aren't familiar, this is the shooting of a black man who was suffering from a mental health condition in one of our busiest intersections over by the Starbucks on Martin Way in Hobby Lobby, in that area. And when this happened, I was obviously incredibly personally impacted, and I really, really wanted to understand what had occurred, why the crisis response unit wasn't deployed, and I later come to find out it's because Mr. Green had a knife. The investigation concluded, and they concluded that the officers acted within policy. However, some of you may have seen that there was recently an article where the city settled for about $600,000 with the family, and since that time, and also, excuse me, let me back up. As part of that agreement, the family insisted that Olympia police officers no longer be allowed to use things, symbols on their weapons or on their uniforms or persons. Such as the thin blue line, which is what many people call the Blue Lives Matter symbol, which is something that will no longer be permitted amongst our officers because it was personally on the weapon as well. And so they've made that a condition of the settlement as well.
Wait, the blue line was on which weapon?
On some of our police officers' weapons,
And that's bad
they were
because-
permitted to use that symbol. So so it's bad because well, we see the thin red line for the fire department, right? And that's usually for memorial purposes, and so is the thin blue line. That's the true meaning behind it, is the memorial of fallen officers. What it has become is a political symbol for Blue Lives Matter, which is a problem because it's in response to Black Lives Matter. Right. So it's sort of a way of kind of watering down the meaning of the other movement, and so people feel that that's offensive, and given the situation that an unarmed black man was killed in this case, that's why.
Why do you say he was unarmed? Why do you say he was unarmed?
I'm sorry?
Why do you say he was unarmed?
Did I say that? I didn't
You
say that.
said that.
You just said that.
Yeah, it just kind of
You
slipped.
said an unarmed black man.
Maybe I said that because usually in the cases they are, but in this case he was not unarmed, excuse me. And I did clarify and say that he had a knife earlier, thank you. So, yes, and so that's the situation, and I am personally, I want our community to be able to take what we have learned from this situation, specifically as we talked about our reimagining public safety process, which was literally underway, and we had just approved recommendations after this all occurred. And so what we're hoping is that we take all of the lessons learned from this incident, and that we are able to make adjustments. So for example, we're told that some of the officers knew that Mr. Green had suffered from a mental health condition prior to this incident. In fact, I believe they had just responded to another call that was related to him just days prior to the shooting. And so we need to make sure that we understand what are some best practices that we can do, what are our officers learning in terms of training and response to incidents of this nature. And I personally want to say that I am not going to continue to make assertions about what was done, inappropriately one way or another. The decision has been made that they weren't within policy, and unless we're told otherwise by another entity, that is a decision we go with, we respect as a community, and we move forward. That doesn't mean that there aren't lessons to be learned, however, in this incident, and what can we do to de-escalate situations before they arrive at the place of having to shoot and kill one of our community members. And so that's what I take away from that incident, from that unfortunate tragedy in our community. And I will say that I have, I would say, somewhat of a mutual respect for Mrs. Green and her family, Timothy Green's family. I actually just saw her in our community last week. And so she's somebody that comes up to me and says hello, and very, very respectful people. And I look forward to standing with them in their grief as we work together to improve law enforcement response in our community. And so what's your easy question, Doug?
We'll get on to the next slide.
Okay. Housing and homelessness. Okay, so this is where you can see that we housed about 265 people that transitioned from encampments into housing last year. And you can see specifically the number of individuals at each of the sites that have been housed. As I said earlier, the large encampments really have negative impacts, and that we've closed about 6 of those across the county just last year. We are investing in creating a temporary shelter. So for example, you might see Maple Court in Lacey is where we've housed some folks, as well as France Anderson Road, which has enabled the other encampments to close, like Sleater Kinney and Wheeler, and that's where those folks are. And so since closing these encampments, we've obviously seen a decreased visibility, specifically in our downtown, when it comes to houseless folks in our community. Yes?
At Patterson and Martin Way, there's a second facility opening soon, it looks like. I drive by it all the time.
Yes, so that's the Unity Commons project. So the first phase of that provided about 65 units of housing, which is the building in the far back there, in addition to a shelter that is run by Interfaith Works, a partnership with them. So the second phase, which is closer to the road, is Unity Commons Phase 2, which will provide an additional 60+ units of permanent supportive housing as well.
Well, just to be prescriptive, is that going to start addressing what's happening in Martin Way, just a little bit near Ensign Road there? Because there's still that massive encampment right by the water here.
Yes, so what you're talking about is what's commonly referred to as the jungle.
The jungle.
That's going to take us a little bit more time to respond to. It is the largest encampment in the county at the moment. That's going to take a little bit more time to clear out. We have a long-term plan or idea of what we're doing with that. We recently applied for a grant to the federal government to have manufactured homes eventually occupy that space after we have enough permanent supportive units to clear out the jungle. We find it difficult to get private development in that space, which is why we applied for the grant and have decided to purchase that land so that it's all city-owned. It's only partially city-owned. And the idea is that we would eventually clear those folks off. We do understand that a road would eventually need to go through that encampment area at the moment to connect Pacific to Ensign. The reason for that is because it would be much easier for emergency vehicles to get to the hospital if there were a road that went through there and made that connection. And so eventually what we would see is a road there and affordable housing units, I believe in perpetuity, manufactured homes that would be on that space. But what we're talking about is that actual people in there, living in their homes on that space, we're talking 2030, maybe?
Yeah. Is it true
Yes.
that the current owner of that property is the reason why they're not pushed out because he allows it? Is that my understanding anyway?
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily use the words allow. I would just simply say they haven't asked for them to be trespassed. And so because they haven't asked for them to be trespassed, and it was private property, that's why they're still there. But now will be city-owned, which will give us more time to respond. The approach that we take is one that's consistent with our one community plan when it comes to addressing housing and homelessness. What we don't want to do is just break up encampments with no plan of where to house these people and then scatter them throughout the community. And then suddenly you see them in neighborhoods and all over in different places in the city. At least when there is an encampment, we know where they are and can somewhat be monitored, managed to some degree, that sort of approach.
Question?
Yes.
On Martin, there is a tower crane that appears to be just inside the Lacey city limits. Is that indeed the domain of Lacey to deal with? I'm wondering what's going to become of that thing, because it's been sitting there for months.
I'm not sure which crane you're referring to, but if it is in Lacey, then yes, it's Lacey. But what I will say is that we do have a regional housing council, and if you're referring to houseless community members, whether they're in Lacey or Olympia, we are trying our best to have a regional response. So in fact, I believe there are some of our formerly homeless folks are in Maple Court, which is the former Days Inn Hotel, which is actually in Lacey. And then we have Lacey community members that have actually just moved into what used to be the Golden Gavel in downtown Olympia. And so really what you see is sort of a regional response that we're really trying to get at as a county to address the issue.
I'll take about 5 more minutes.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. Let me move right along. I didn't even make it out of homelessness. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. Okay. So as you can see here, France Anderson permanent supportive housing is on the left. There is some information about our Rights of Way initiative, which is one of the governor's initiatives. Thurston County has been seen as a model for how to respond in terms of our response. We've cleared encampments on the state rights of way, and that's why you see those huge boulders in place, so that we ensure that new encampments don't pop back up in those same spaces, which is the point there. And this is the former mitigation site that opened in 2018 in downtown Olympia, and it was a big controversy at the time. It was meant to be temporary. It turned out it was temporary. It just took a little longer to move it out. And since that time, those folks have been all cleared out, and they are now located at Clint Street Village. You can see that there. Okay, greenhouse gas emissions. So I have a lot to say here, but I am going to skip ahead because there is quite a bit, and I want to get to the meat of our presentation.
You're not there yet?
Oh no, not even close. All right. Okay. So let me just back this up to this slide here. So this is the 2024 general fund operating budget. You can see there. So this is how it's allocated, which is why I wanted you to see this. So for the longest time, we had this perception that for some reason the Olympia City Council does not support our police department. I don't know why this is a perception, but it's actually not correct. The Olympia Police Department has supported the Olympia Police Department, and in fact is one of the few cities across the country that did not defund its department when there were calls for our council at the time to do so. So as you can see, nearly 50% of the budget, it goes towards police and fire. And that's because, as you can see, our community members have told us that public safety is one of their top issues, and they want us to invest in it, which is why you see that there, in addition to the increasing demand for more rapid response when it comes to fire, addressing criminal activity. We don't have a lot of violent crime in Olympia, but we do have property crime. Which is something that is starting to wane just a bit, but it is something that we see in our community. So as you can see here, the police and fire and administrative support are at the top, including parks, arts, and recreation, public works, regional commitments, housing and homelessness, economic development, and then our municipal court. So I do want to just mention that our municipal court is part of that budget as well. In terms of the size. And so that is sort of what distinguishes us from Lacey, for example, which does not have a municipal court. So when people ask about size of the city and in the scope of the budget, and why is ours so much bigger, and Lacey's technically a bigger city now, we have more resources.
Lacey does not have a fire department.
And Lacey, yes, and Lacey also does not have their own fire department as well, which is another significant reason for that as well. So, we do need to have conversations with our community around where we're at with revenues not keeping up with the pace of expenditures. So on this next slide here, as you can see, this is the 10-year general fund forecast. And we can see there that that top line is our expenditures, and the blue line below is our revenue. And we can see where that's going if we continue at the pace. Part of the issue with closing this gap is that communities, cities rather, in accordance with state law, cannot raise the property tax limit beyond 1% without voter approval. And so this is something that many cities across our state have said is a challenge because cities are responding to more and more issues that traditionally they have not, such as housing and homelessness, for example. Is something that the state government knows cities have done an excellent job at responding to, and so they are leaning on us to do that work. However, we can't continue to do that work at the pace that we're doing without new revenue being generated. And so we're having to have these tough conversations with our community. There's a survey that went out to really ask community members, where are they with this? Do you want us to think about potential cuts? Do you want us to keep doing what we're doing at the pace that we're doing? And what that means for you is are you willing to pay more?
We want more services, but we don't want to pay more.
Exactly.
Is there something you don't understand?
But it's about really having those realistic conversations that while we're okay in the moment, long term we will not be. And so the levy lid lift isn't the save all, but it does help us significantly close this gap. And what we anticipate is about a $5 million gap that we will need to close.
The levy what?
Levy lid lift. The property tax cap.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so we'll need to have these conversations with our community, which is why I'm here today, to really inform you of what the situation is, and really to get you to start thinking about where we're at in the city of Olympia and what you would like to see going forward. I always say that it's very important that we communicate to our community what exactly we are doing, and if you expect us to keep doing that, what will you lose as a result if we're in the future if we're not able to maintain a response to many of our initiatives in the way that we're doing without new revenue being generated. And as I said, our forecast is in the range of a gap between 5 to 9 million at this stage. And so we are using that survey to eventually get those results back to help inform us about what decision we want to make. If our community members are telling us that they are not willing to pay more, then the city council has to sit with that decision as to whether or not we even want to visit the idea of raising the levy of the property tax at this particular time. And so that's where we're at this moment, and we'll continue to have those conversations in the coming months. And so I encourage you to pay attention to the city council, our meetings, and if you have any additional questions, because I skipped a lot at my time, feel free to pull me aside and ask me. And I appreciate the time this morning, and thank you so much.
Will you be around after the meeting in case anybody will?
I will.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. Dontae, thank you so much. Okay, one more round of applause for Mayor Dontae. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Jerry Farmer.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, President Mike. Let's give another big hand to Dontae for being here. Really appreciate it. I know that early mornings are a chore, and especially because so many public officials have to, do late night stuff. I mean, just take your typical council meeting ends at how late usually?
Sometimes it depends, between 9 and 10:30.
See, 9 and 10:30. So as you know, years back, 2015, but who's counting? I ran for what did I run for?
Board commissioner.
Board commissioner. That's right. And there are 4 words that I've taken from that experience, and those words are, thank God I lost. Because I go to bed at 8 o'clock. You know, and that would have been really, really hard on me and my cycle, because as we know at my age, regularity is everything.